Things haven't necessarily been going in Huawei's favor of late, but that might change very soon with these next two devices. Hey guys, it's John V here with PhoneArena, and this is our hands-on look at the Huawei P20 and the P20 Pro. There's been a dramatic change in the design of the P20 and the P20 Pro versus last year's offerings. For starters, we have this new twilight color, and I gotta say, it captured my attention the moment I looked at it. It is stunning. It's almost like a gradient color scheme because it goes from a cool blue at one end and then ends up turning into this warm red tone on the other. So it has a really nice effect. And I gotta admit, this is probably going to be a trendy color scheme that we're going to see others copy. Not surprisingly, they adopt the trendy glass meets metal constructions that we see just about everywhere. It's sporting the same curved bevel edges as well. It feels good in the hand, it's solidly constructed, and you get a sense that they're premium phones. Now, the P20 Pro is taller and wider. That's kind of expected given the larger display, and they have a lot of commonalities like the placement of their buttons, and you have the fingerprint sensor below their displays. What's different though is that the P20 Pro features an IP67 certification, so it is water and dust resistant, whereas the P20 only has an IP53 rating. We also find an IR blaster with the P20 Pro, and unfortunately, both phones have dropped the headphone jack. As far as their displays are concerned, the P20 being the smaller phone does have a smaller size screen, while the P20 Pro has a larger one. So what we have here is a 5.8-inch RGBW display with the P20. It has a resolution of 22 by 44, while the P20 Pro has a larger 6.1-inch OLED panel with a resolution of 2240 by 1080 pixels. Between them both, I personally prefer the P20 Pro's display just because of that OLED technology. You're going to find that the colors seem to pop a little bit more and the viewing angles are much wider. What's striking though about their displays is that yes, they do have a notch, just like what you find in the iPhone X, which is kind of a distraction at first, but honestly, if you're going to be using this for a while, it doesn't really get in the way as much when you first look at it. Because of that notch, you would think that they've added in some sort of new technology with that area for the notch, but they don't. Instead, you have just a 24 megapixel front-facing camera on both phones, which is impressive when you think about the megapixel count, but I don't think so it justifies the need of having a notch. Both phones were running pre-production software, but my guess is that it's going to be running the same Emotion UI 8.0 experience that we saw previously already, and it's going to be running on top of Android 8.0 Oreo. The folks over at Huawei kept on emphasizing the new AI-centric features of the phones. Now, we saw this working previously in the Mate 10 Pro. I don't really see a lot of those AI-centric features in other aspects of the experience, except for the camera. They've expanded the AI here with the phones because now it's able to detect more scenes than it did before. For example, if you're taking a portrait shot, the phone will automatically put itself into portrait mode and apply that bokeh effect that you'd expect. All of this is great and shows the evolution of the AI-centric features that we saw established before, but I wouldn't go far to say that this is real AI we're talking about, because to me, if a phone can actually provide relevant suggestions or feedback based on my usage, then yes, to me that is AI. Both phones are powered by the Kirin 970 chip. You get a generous 128 gigabytes of internal storage with both phones and micro SD cards expansion, but the P20 Pro gets more RAM. It's 6 gigabytes versus the 4 gigabytes you're going to find in the P20. The most fascinating part about both phones are their cameras, specifically the P20 Pro's camera, because it utilizes this new triple camera system, which we haven't seen before, and it's really intriguing what they're doing here. Well, let me talk about the P20's camera first. It's armed with a dual camera system. You have a 12 megapixel main RGB sensor. It's paired with a 20 megapixel f1.6 mono sensor, and of course, you know it's going to deliver some nice looking portrait shots. But the P20 Pro really steals the show with its triple cameras. Essentially, you're going to get a main 40 megapixel RGB sensor, there's a 20 megapixel monochrome sensor, and finally an 8 megapixel telephoto sensor. The combination of these three cameras enable the P20 Pro to snap photos faster, you could shoot farther, and it could produce richer looking colors. It's worth mentioning that it achieves the highest ISO level in a smartphone at ISO 102,000. It also has a 5x hybrid zoom with AI master stabilization, which allows users to capture sharp looking images with 4-second long exposures. And finally, over on the video side, it can shoot super slow motion footage at 960 frames per second in 720p. I definitely like where Huawei's taking the camera here with the P20 Pro because it doesn't really focus on one single area. It seems to be attacking a really broad area with the camera. So not only do you have your standard snapshots and videos, but now you have the ability to do a little bit of a telephoto zoom with that zoom lens, and of course low light performance, which is the one area that I'm going to be really looking forward to checking out because we know how many smartphones perform under those conditions. Even with their very skinny bodies, they're able to stuff substantial batteries into these two phones. You have a 3400 mAh battery in the P20 and a 4000 mAh one in the P20 Pro, so I'm hoping to get really good longevity, just as good as the Huawei Mate 10 Pro that I checked out. Now, as far as fast charging technology, they tell us that it's going to deliver a 58% battery charge after only 30 minutes of charging. You should know that neither phone has been confirmed to come out in the US market, which isn't all that surprising given the P series' history, and secondly, there's no mention about their prices either. It's going to be available in other markets around the world, like the European market and some Asian markets naturally, and it's going to really have to compete against some of the top-tiered offerings in the space. So as far as pricing is concerned, they really can't stray too far from what Samsung has established already. We know that Huawei has been hit with some bad news of late, but the P20 and the P20 Pro are just two examples of the company's tenacity and resilience in the face of adversity. They are stunning looking devices, and the P20 Pro especially is intriguing because of its triple cameras. It's undeniably different, but in a way, it shows their commitment to evolving and continuing to be a major force in the smartphone space. And that's our quick hands-on look at the Huawei P20 and the P20 Pro. If you guys want to learn more about them, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. This is John V, signing off.